Good evening, sweetheart. It's Maggie. Come sit with me. Let's make this night a gentler one. Tonight is January 4th, 2026. A Sunday night that doesn't rush itself. Outside, the rain arrives the way it always does, when it knows it's welcome, quietly, without announcement. I waited a moment before speaking, not because I forgot what to say, but because some nights need to be entered slowly, like a room that's already holding something fragile. A lamp casts the same circle of light it always does. Familiar, unimpressive, enough. January light doesn't try to warm you all at once. It offers warmth in portions, as if it understands that comfort works better when it doesn't overwhelm. I settle into my chair, the one that knows the curve of my back, the way I lean slightly to the left when I'm tired, the pause I take before fully sitting down. It has learned me over time, and tonight I let it. Across from me, there's another chair. It has always been there. Same place, same angle, same quiet patience. But tonight I notice it. Isn't it strange how something can exist beside you for years without ever truly arriving until one particular moment? The chair across from me hasn't changed. The room hasn't changed. Nothing obvious has shifted. And yet, here it is. The light touches one arm of the chair, then fades before reaching the other, not hiding it, not revealing it fully either, just enough to say, I see you. I think about how many evenings I've spent here without ever giving that chair a second thought. How many nights passed where I filled the room with sound, pages turning, cups being set down, small movements meant to keep the quiet from growing too large. Tonight, I haven't done any of that yet. The rain outside seems to understand this kind of pause. It doesn't push. It doesn't fade away either. It stays. I place my cup on the table beside me. The tea is still too hot. I don't mind waiting. January has taught me that waiting doesn't always mean delay. Sometimes it's just respect for timing. The chair across from me holds nothing right now. No coat draped over the back. No book resting on the seat. No reason, really, for my eyes to return to it again and again. And yet, they do. There were years when I couldn't leave it like this. Empty felt unfinished back then, like something had been forgotten. I used to give that chair tasks, holding things, catching clutter, absorbing the restless energy I didn't know what to do with. Silence felt suspicious then. Tonight, silence feels different. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't wait for answers. It simply sits with me. Lily shifts near my feet, circles once, then settles again. She doesn't look at the chair for long. Animals rarely do. They understand presence without needing evidence. I let my eyes rest on the chair across from me again, not searching, not remembering, just noticing the way its legs mirror the ones beneath me, the way time has softened its edges, just as it has softened mine. This is not a moment of realization. There is no conclusion waiting at the end of it. It's simply the first time tonight that I've allowed the room to be exactly what it is. Nothing added, nothing removed. If you're sitting with me right now, listening from your own quiet place, you don't need to imagine this chair. You already know it. It's the thing you only notice when the noise finally steps aside. The clock moves forward, barely announcing itself. The night continues arriving 1 second at a time. And across from me, the chair stays where it has always been, unoccupied, unrushed, waiting for nothing. Tonight, that feels like enough. The chair across from me hasn't moved. Of course it hasn't. Chairs are very good at staying where they are placed. It's one of the things we ask of them. And yet, as I sit here a little longer, I begin to understand something quietly. That stillness does not always mean emptiness. There were times, years ago, when that chair was never bare. It held a sweater, folded and unfolded again, as if indecision had a fabric form. It held books I meant to read, then meant to return, then meant to remember. Sometimes it held a bag by the handle, leaning just enough to say, "I'll be needed again soon." I didn't think much of it then. The chair was useful, occupied, busy in a quiet way. I mistook that for meaning. Tonight, the chair holds none of those things, and still, it does not feel empty. There is a difference between a space that lacks something and a space that has learned how to hold. The chair across from me has learned. It has learned the weight of afternoons that stretched too long. It has learned the shape of pauses that didn't know what came next. It has learned patience. I realize now that I used to give it objects because I didn't trust it with nothing. Nothing felt risky back then, like a question with no safe answer. But the chair never asked to be filled. It accepted what was placed there and released it when it was time. Across from me, it does the same tonight. It releases expectation. If you listen closely, and you don't have to try very hard, you might notice how the room breathes differently when nothing is being arranged. No mental lists, no adjustments, just presence, undecorated. The rain seems to agree. It doesn't increase. It doesn't fade. It keeps its promise to simply be part of the night. I lift my cup again. The tea has cooled enough now. It tastes softer. Some things improve when they stop insisting on heat. The chair across from me holds all the moments I never named. Not memories exactly. Those tend to ask for attention. These are quieter than that. They're impressions, residue. The way a room remembers laughter long after the sound has left. I don't replay anything specific. There is no scene to revisit, just an understanding that this chair has been part of more evenings than I could count if I tried. In psychology, they might call this a space for projection, a place where we put things we don't have words for yet. But tonight, I don't need a name for it. The chair across from me doesn't represent someone. It doesn't symbolize loss. It doesn't wait for return. It simply holds what remains after movement. I think about how often we confuse nothing there with nothing mattered. They are not the same. Sometimes what mattered most was never loud enough to announce itself. It sat quietly, listened, shared space, just like this chair. If you're listening tonight from your own room, your own corner, your own chair, you may already know the space I'm talking about. The place that doesn't demand attention, yet feels strangely full when you finally let it be. Across from me, the chair continues its work, not holding things, not holding people, just holding the room together in a way that doesn't need credit. And for the first time in a long while, I don't feel the urge to give it anything to do. There's a moment that happens after you've been sitting still long enough. Not boredom, not restlessness, something else. It's the moment when the room stops adjusting itself around you and begins to breathe with you instead. I notice it now. The chair beneath me and the chair across from me seem to have entered some kind of quiet understanding. They don't mirror each other exactly. They don't need to. They simply exist in the same rhythm. Both are worn in similar places, the arms softened by time, the legs slightly uneven from years of accommodating different floors, different homes, different versions of life. Neither one complains. I think about how many bodies have trusted these chairs with their weight. Not just physical weight, that's the easy part. The other kind. The kind that settles into your shoulders after a long day when no one is watching. The kind you don't announce when you sit down. Chairs learn those things. They learn where the tension gathers, where the sighs land. They don't try to fix it. They don't ask for improvement. They just hold. Across from me, the empty chair does not feel distant. It feels aligned, like a conversation that doesn't require turn-taking. There was a time when silence between two seats felt like something unfinished, as if someone should speak, as if a conclusion was missing. But tonight, the silence feels mutual, agreed upon. I don't imagine someone sitting there. I don't fill the space with memory or expectation. That would break the agreement. The agreement is simple. Nothing needs to happen. The room understands this. The walls don't echo. The ceiling doesn't press down. Even the clock seems to soften its voice. Time passes, but gently. There's a sense of balance here, not because everything is symmetrical, but because nothing is trying to take more space than it needs. The chair across from me is not waiting to be used. It's waiting to be allowed to remain what it is. I realize how rare that is, how often we rush to assign purpose before something has the chance to simply exist. For years, I thought usefulness was the highest compliment. Tonight, I'm not so sure. There is dignity and stillness. The chair beneath me shifts slightly as I adjust my weight. Across from me, the other chair remains perfectly still. Neither reacts. Neither demands attention. They share the room without negotiation. Outside, the rain finds a new rhythm, not louder, just slightly different, as if the night itself is listening in. I think about how many conversations never happened in this room, and how many didn't need to. Not every connection announces itself with words. Some exist purely in shared space. If you're listening right now, you might be sitting in your own chair. Maybe there's another one nearby. Or maybe there's just an empty side of the bed, an unused cushion, a corner of the room that feels aware. You don't need to look at it. It already knows you're there. The agreement between two chairs isn't about companionship. It's about coexistence, about letting things be present without forcing interaction. I feel my shoulders lower without deciding to relax. My breathing slows without instruction. This is what safety feels like when it isn't explained. The lamp continues to glow, not brighter, not dimmer, just constant. The chairs hold their places, and somewhere in that quiet alignment, I understand something important. You don't have to fill every space to prove that it matters. Across from me, the chair remains, not empty, not occupied, simply present. There are memories that don't arrive as pictures. They arrive as posture, as the way your spine settles when you sit, as the angle your feet choose without instruction. I feel one of those memories now, not sharp, not heavy, just present enough to change the way I'm sitting. This chair remembers how I used to lean forward when listening too closely. It remembers the nights when silence felt temporary, like someone might return from the kitchen or from another room or from another life. It doesn't insist on those memories. It simply holds them the way wood holds warmth, quietly, without asking whether they still apply. Across from me, the other chair keeps its own archive. Different angles, different pauses. It remembers hands resting on its arms that never belonged to me. Hands that waited, hands that rested, hands that trusted the evening would be kind enough. I don't need to name whose hands. The chair already knows, and knowing doesn't require reliving. There's something gentle about objects that remember without needing to remind you. They don't interrupt. They don't correct. They let the present sit where it wants. happens for a moment becomes almost mist. That kind of rain has always felt thoughtful to me, as if the sky is choosing its words carefully. I notice my hands now, how they rest in my lap instead of gripping the armrests. That's new. Or maybe it's just now allowed. There was a time when sitting still felt irresponsible, as if rest needed justification, as if quiet meant something was being avoided. But tonight, stillness feels earned. The chair across from me does not lean forward. It does not invite explanation. It stays back, offering space instead of answers. That feels important. So much of life has leaned forward at me, asking, requesting, insisting. This chair does none of that. It reminds me that presence doesn't have to perform. I think about all the conversations that took place without voices, a glance across the room, a shared pause before standing, the way someone waited until you were ready without announcing they were waiting. Those moments shaped me more than the loud ones ever did. The chairs witnessed those. They didn't participate. They didn't interfere. They simply provided the ground where patience could exist. I reached down and smoothed the fabric on the arm of my chair, an unconscious gesture. The cloth has thinned there, not fragile, just honest. Time leaves its signature in places that were touched often, not aggressively, just repeatedly. That kind of wear has always felt like devotion to me. Across the room, the other chair bears its own marks. A slight fading where someone once rested their elbow while listening without planning what to say next. I realized something then. The chairs don't remember events. They remember behaviors. The way people stayed, the way they waited, the way they left room for silence to finish its thought. And perhaps that's why being here tonight feels different. I'm not recounting. I'm allowing the room to be what it is, allowing the chairs to remember without summoning anything. There's a calm that comes when memory is no longer a demand, when it becomes a companion instead of a visitor. I feel that calm now. It sits beside me, not across from me. It doesn't need its own chair. The evening deepens slightly, not darker, just quieter. The kind of quiet that understands you're listening. And in that quiet, understand something else. Not all remembering is about the past. Some of it is about learning how to sit differently in the present. The chairs remain, the rain continues, and the room holds us all without commentary. There comes a point in the evening when remembering no longer asks to be explored. It simply asks to be allowed. I feel that point now. It arrives quietly, not with emotion, not with images, but with a loosening. The chair across from me doesn't feel empty tonight, not occupied, just available. Available is different. There was a time when emptiness demanded explanation, when absence felt like a question that had to be answered. But availability feels gentler than that. It feels like possibility that isn't rushing me. The rain has been doing that all evening, falling without urgency, not trying to become a storm, not apologizing for being light, just being enough. I think that's what this chair has taught me over the years. How to be enough without filling every space. I remember when this room used to feel louder, not because of sound, but because of intention. So many plans lived here, so many futures rehearsed quietly in the space between these two chairs. Those futures did not all arrive, and that's not a failure. I used to think unfinished things were mistakes. Now I understand they're simply places where life changed its mind. The chair across from me never complains about that. It doesn't resent the conversations that didn't happen. It doesn't hold the air hostage with expectation. It releases. There's a freedom in that. I notice how my breathing has changed. Slower, deeper, as if my body has accepted that tonight does not require defense. I rest my hands on the arms of my chair. They fit there easily now. No tension, no readiness to rise. At some point in life, you stop preparing to leave rooms. You start learning how to stay in them. That shift doesn't announce itself. It settles like dust in lamplight. The chair across from me is part of that lesson. It stays whether or not it's used. It offers presence without condition. I think about all the evenings I rushed through, all the times I stood up too quickly, afraid of what might surface if I stayed seated. Fear doesn't shout, it fidgets, it keeps you moving. Tonight, I'm not fidgeting, and that feels like progress. There's a softness in the room now that wasn't here at the beginning of the night. Not because something was added, but because something stopped resisting. The chairs didn't change. I did. I glance at the clock, not to measure time, just to acknowledge it. Time feels friendly tonight, unhurried. I think about tomorrow, but not in detail, just as a concept, a continuation, not a demand. The chair across from me will still be there then. It doesn't worry about relevance. It knows its role. And perhaps that's what I'm learning, that I don't need to justify my place in the room either. Being present is contribution enough. I sit with that thought until it stops being a thought and becomes a sensation, a quiet weight low in the chest, not heavy, grounded. This is what remains after memory loosens its grip. Not emptiness, space. Space that doesn't echo, space that holds. The chair across from me rests in that space. So do I. The night has shifted, not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough to let me feel that it's ready to be finished. The chair across from me has not moved, neither have I, and yet something has settled. This is the part of the evening I've learned not to rush, the part where the quiet does its final work, not of remembering, not of understanding, but of easing. The rain has become finer now. It no longer taps, it rests, as if the sky itself has found a comfortable position. I look at the chair across from me one last time tonight, not with expectation, not with longing, just recognition. It doesn't need me to sit there. It doesn't need anyone to. Its purpose isn't to be filled. It's to be ready. That thought stays with me, ready, without anticipation, available, without demand. There was a time when I measured nights by what happened in them, who visited, what was said, what changed. Now I measure nights by how gently they let me go. I pull the blanket a little higher over my knees, not because I'm cold, because it feels right. This room has learned my signals. When I slow, it slows. When I soften, it follows. The chair across from me has always been part of that conversation. It doesn't interrupt. It doesn't insist. It simply mirrors the space I allow. Tonight, the space is calm, not empty, complete. I think just briefly about tomorrow night, about the next evening when I'll turn on this lamp again, when I'll sit here with the different weather outside and a different weight inside. The chair will still be there, so will the quiet. They are patient that way, and that gives me comfort, not because nothing changes, but because some things don't need to. I realize something important now. This chair across from me is not waiting for someone. It never was. It's waiting for a moment when presence feels safe enough to arrive. Tonight was one of those moments. Tomorrow night may be another, or not, and that's all right. The rain has nearly stopped. Just a faint suggestion remains, the kind that lets you know it was here. I place my hands on the arms of my chair again. Feel the familiar shape, the steady support. I'm aware now that this is the end of something, not an ending that closes, an ending that settles. I let my shoulders drop, let my breathing slow, let the room keep its silence. The chair across from me holds its place, so does the night, and I hold myself without effort. In a little while, I'll stand. I'll turn off the lamp. I'll let the room sleep, but not yet. For this final moment, I stay with the chair, with the quiet, with whatever is ready to come next. Good evenings don't rush you. They walk you to the edge and wait until you're steady enough to step away. I feel steady now. Rest well tonight, sweetheart. Good night from me.